Selwyn here from WynnStrength.com, bringing you the final day of the 8th week of the Darkhorse training program by Brian Alsruhe. Like usual, I'll leave links below for Brian Alsruhe's original video where he outlines your program and goes just into how to complete the program yourself, as well as links to the LiftVault website where they've taken out the hard work and created a free Google Sheets for you to use, where they've taken that information from the video and placed it into a spreadsheet so you can do the program on your own if you would like to. So wrapping up the 8th week brings us to upper body pushing and pulling. Like usual, we have a couple more changes to the program. Hopefully this will be the last set of changes. Instead of doing the T-bar rows, we're actually doing the neutral grip pull-ups. No weights this time, so we're doing neutral grip pull-ups with the Z press, one of my favorite accessory movements for the overhead press, as well as some ab twists and some kettlebell swings. Again, the ab movements aren't that important. Just kind of do ab movements that you kind of enjoy or you think would help bring up some ab weaknesses for you. If you don't have good stability, try and do some anti-rotational stuff, so maybe some power presses, even a side plank or a plank are great. Get some strength there. You want to do some ab wheel rollouts, some hanging leg raises, windshield wipers, things of that nature. No need to be fancy with ab movements, just get in some good exposure and pick in some difficult movements there. It's things that you can either load as well, so ab crunches, things like that go really far with helping develop that midline core strength. From there we go on to the conditioning for the kettlebell swings. Again, no need to be super fancy here. If you have a rowing machine, you can just row for that and do some jump rope. Literally anything, just keep the blood moving for another 10 to 20 seconds, just to add to that conditioning effect of the program. But onto the main movements of the day. We started off with some neutral grip pull-ups. Again, we're shooting for 15 reps here without any weights. Again, higher rep pull-ups is one of my weaknesses, not one of the things I've really focused on in the past, so going over that 10 rep range is a little bit of a struggle for me. So with that in mind, I didn't want to add any weight to that to prevent me hitting that over 10 rep range. So what I did was, first set was 12, then 15, which was awesome, and then third set was 12, and then the last set was 15, so we kind of alternated there between hitting that 15 rep goal and hitting that 12 rep reserve rep range there. But nevertheless, that's a good result, I think, because it is one of those exercises that those little things kind of add up, and the fact that I can do 15 unbroken pull-ups is somewhat of an achievement for myself personally, so that's great. Hopefully in future we'll start adding weight to that so we can do some weighted pull-ups getting into that higher rep range, which is going to do great things for overall back strength development as well as arm movement. So bicep activation is good with pull-ups. I've said it before, if you watch my videos, and I'll say it again, really focus on working on those pull-ups. If you can't do a pull-up, you don't really need to do bicep curls. I would focus all of your energy on getting a pull-up, whether that be through assistance pull-ups or lat pull-downs, but definitely work your way up to being able to do one at least unassisted pull-up before you start doing any bicep work. And this isn't to say that direct bicep work is bad or not as good for you. I'm just saying when you're at that level, you really want to be efficient and effective with your movements, and working on getting a stronger back is just by default going to help you build stronger arms too. So one is going to help the other until there's a point where you can start isolating that bicep movement away. But until you get the requisite back strength, I think you're better off spending your time and resources and energy into developing that pull-up. From there we move on to the Z press, one of my favorite overhead press accessories that I also taken from Brian Alsruhe in one of his other videos, how to build a good overhead press. Very good movement because it removes your entire lower body because we're not sitting on the ground. But in addition to that, it's better than a seated overhead press where you have the back support, like from an upright chair or something along those lines, because you're able to push off of that backrest and get more strength in the press. But what it does is, I think it starts to weaken that. It doesn't give you that strong, unstable nature of the overhead press to press off of. So by removing the legs out completely, you really have to focus on maintaining core strength and maintaining balance of the upper body while pushing that weight in that perfect bar path. Because one thing notice here is if that bar path isn't perfectly dialed in with the Z press, it's going to have a tendency to fail or to become a non-rep because I'm not able to lock that out overhead. So it really makes you pay attention to those two things that are probably at the core of every overhead press fail is lack of core strength and lack of technique. I think a lot of people probably have good shoulder strength, but that's probably not the thing that's holding them up for the most part, especially once you finish that once you get past that beginner's phase of strength training. I think a lot of people have really strong shoulders. It's just harder to execute that strength in the overhead press because it is relying on so many factors. There's so many strength weaknesses going up the body, because now we're standing in an upright, unsupported position. You don't have anything to brace off of except for the strength you've built within your own body. So any weak link that you have in your body is going to highlight itself very much in the overhead press, because your shoulders are kind of relatively strong for what they need to do. So overhead pressing becomes really reliant on your technique, making sure that bar path stays in that good line, that upright line of the mid-torso, which in effect feels like you're pushing the barbell behind you. Don't push it in front of you. It starts to take away that angle of attack. And then that core strength, because once that core weakens to that breaking point for the overhead press, you'll see your hip shift from side to side. Some weird bending starts to occur. You start to like arch really far backwards or arch to the side as your body tries to overcome the weight that's kind of being balanced over the top of you. So that's what I love with the Z press. It really focuses you to dial in those two aspects of the overhead press. So hopefully when we go over to the overhead press, it transfers over to better gains in the press. So we hit that top set of 150 pounds for a 5 with the Z press. I thought that was awesome. I'm really impressed with the progress I'm making with the Z press. I think I'm progressing here, so hopefully that'll lead to progress and some improvements in my standing overhead press once we do test out the heavy singles in the future. From there, we move on to volume, and just like the previous weeks, I have been cutting out movements and sets in order to make that time limit. We did cut out all abs and conditioning as well as the final set, so we only did 2 supersets of weighted neutral grip pull-ups. So I added the surprisingly heavy weight of 5 pounds to hit 12 reps for the neutral grip pull-ups, and then we dropped that weight from the Z press all the way down to 120 pounds, and I hit that for 11 reps for the first set and 10 reps for the last set. So stellar gains there for the pull-up. Again, not one of my strong suits, so hopefully again that gets pulled up in this program, so we are increasing some of that exposure to the pull-up there. Again, I think pull-ups help with volume, obviously, just exposure, none to failure, but just exposing yourself to that movement as much as you can without obviously failing on the lift. So we want to keep that rep range to within a total RPE of like 7 to 8, so we can build up on that and accumulate volume over the course of a week rather than trying to accumulate it all in one day. And finally, we wrap up with some dynamic bench pressing. Again, I think a lot of the tricep work that's been happening with the existence movement is really helping with the bench press. We did 165 pounds with the pink bands, and we did do 10-minute EMOM, stuck to the 10-minute time limit, as well as hit those 3 reps. And I think the speed was there all the way from the start from the first set to the last set. I think speed was good, technique was good, no shoulder pain, no bicep pain. So I think the bench press, out of all things, is surprisingly going really well out of this program, because it is one of the lifts that is showing consistent improvements, especially in the dynamic effort section of the workout, which I think is one of the more difficult areas to progress with, especially with the other movements there that I've been facing problems with. That being said, that wraps it up for the last day of the 8th week. So we just wrapped up the middle of the final phase, so we only have 1 more week to go for the entire program, and it'll be curious to see what my final lifts will be. We'll see if it was able to improve my 1 rep max strength in those 4 lifts. To catch up with that, I'll leave a playlist right here so you can catch up on my previous episodes of the Darkhorse training vlog, as well as see that final result and final overall rating and review for the Darkhorse training program. This has been Selwyn from WynnStrength, and remember, a better life through strength.